Hi, everyone. Yeah. First of all, we are switching to English. I hope this is okay for everyone. And thank you, Microsoft and iMatch, for the invite, and thank you for everyone for being with us. Thank you also for Meaghan, Teresa, and Afonso. Yeah. So just to give you a quick context, what we are trying to discuss is the future of finance and how DeFi and TradeFi are balancing each other. And we try to gather three perspectives on this. So we have DeFi, a traditional bank, and a neobank discussing the topic. That's the logic, and let's try to make it relevant. And Meaghan is head of product at Rover, an SME neobank setting up in Portugal. Awesome, so you should check it out. Teresa is a manager at the Center of Excellence for Innovation at BPI. I think it's also a well-known bank. And Afonso is a DeFi research working with different protocols. And I think we can discuss a little bit more in the meeting, in the conversation. I'm a board member of Portugal FinTech, a non-profit focused on the FinTech ecosystem, so startups applying technology to financial services. And to bring everyone to the same page, I think I would like to start with you, Afonso, to tell us a little bit more on the differences between TradeFi and DeFi, and what do you think really changes now in this new paradigm?
Sure. So super glad to be here with you guys. On the DeFi side, essentially a super short intro to it. In traditional finance, we have several different financial primitives. We have loans, we have stocks, we have derivatives, we have different types of primitives. And the way they are enforced in practice is via contracts, right? You sign a mortgage contract, you hold contracts that say you have a participation in a company or in some other type of entity. And it's legal contracts that, at the end of the day, secure ownership and all of that, right? Other than legal contracts, we also have the entities of companies that end up deciding what's going to happen somewhere via centralized databases, right? So if I have 100 euros in some bank, there's basically a database inside of that bank system that says Afonso and 100 euros. And because it says that, then the bank basically owes me that amount of money. DeFi is basically a new way of thinking about financial primitives, from bonds to not really equities, but participation in things that doesn't rely on legal contracts and also doesn't rely on centralized databases. Instead, it relies on blockchains, right? Which are distributed databases where everyone can see and have both viewing access and root access to who owns what. So all of the wallets, all of the assets are public there. And then also the primitives themselves. So if I take out a loan in a DeFi protocol, if I exchange one asset for another asset in a decentralized exchange, all of that is enforced via code, what's called smart contracts, which is basically just a computer program that executes ownership rights and ownership structures permissionlessly and in a decentralized way, which are kind of like the buzzwords of the space. But the main advantage is that we don't have to have any intermediary. It's just people trading or people having financial exposure against contracts, which are not legal contracts, but code contracts, without a company intermediating and without anyone else being able to, for example, freeze my assets or do something that I wouldn't want to do with them. So that's kind of like a general overview. And currently, like in DeFi, there's still a big way to go and a big path forward until we get to the same level of convenience and even like total value locks as traditional finance. But it has grown tremendously. DeFi was started in like 2018, 2019, so just a couple of years ago. And there are already tens of billions of dollars in these products. So that's kind of the intro.
Yeah. I love like how you make like a huge topic like a quick intro, but thank you for the summary. And also, if in a follow-up question really fast, can you give us a quick example of what we are doing currently, and with protocols are you working, just to also give a practical idea of what is being built?
Obviously. So my main work is at a protocol that, the reason we call it protocols and not like I work at a company, or which would be the traditional designation, right, is because these are not companies, they are just sets of smart contracts, so sets of code that's running autonomously on blockchains that are governed by different structures. So instead of having an LLC, and in Portugal like an LDA, SA, etc., a company that would have those rights, instead it's basically DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, that have rights over those protocols that are the actual product. So whenever we say protocols, it can be kind of like the organization or the product itself. I'm involved in a couple, the main one being Lido Finance, which is currently the protocol that has the highest amount of capital locked in its contracts, close to $7-8 billion. And then I'm also doing other projects for other protocols, for example, Uniswap, which is the largest decentralized exchange in the world as well. My work is mostly quantitative research, very niche stuff like liquidity management and some other a mix of financial data and research work.
All right. Okay. It's always cool because when we talk about DeFi, it's just build and construct from the scratch, and you never talk about how you have to deal with legacy, and the entire banking system is made of old structures. And I would start by, so we have on one side DeFi and building from scratch, traditional banks on the other side, but we also have the perspective of neobanks that are trying to build traditional structures that kind of match the levels of service we expect. So what do you think is changing, and what do you think, and what is Rova building that's so much different than traditional banks?
Thank you so much for the invitation to be here. So first of all, I just want to disclose that I'm a huge fan of DeFi. I think there's definitely a future for DeFi in finance. Do I think it will overtake traditional finance? Not necessarily. So I think neobanks and newer banks are in a very spectacular position in the sense that we can bypass a lot of the legacy ways of thinking, technologies, products, marketing, ways of working, in order to build things quickly, to be flexible with our products and services. So I think when we look to the role of some DeFi products and protocols in the TradFi world, a few actually in Germany, two former founders of traditional finance entities, banks, are now doing a startup in the DeFi space, actually looking to sell to traditional finance neobanks and traditional banks. Specifically for SMEs, and I think that as a neobank starting from scratch, we're definitely in a position to bring these types of new products and services and ways of accessing and thinking about finance quite quickly to the market. And what are we doing at Ralva? So we started Ralva this summer. We believe that business banking, bookkeeping, accounting, the way freelancers and SMEs manage all of these globally, but starting off in Portugal, is broken. So we are launching essentially kind of a one-stop shop for freelancers and SMEs, micro enterprises to access, modern banking, completely digital, open up a bank account entirely from your phone, not have to, spend a couple hours at the branch going back and forth with documents and everything. We're offering an exceptional user interface, and we're also using technology to make the lives of entrepreneurs easier. So we will be allowing our users to send compliant invoices. So anyone in Portugal that's been a freelancer probably knows the pain of the recibos verdes. Also, even as a business, a lot of the accounting tools out there are meant for accountants, not necessarily for business owners. Having things like, clever notifications to help our customers keep on track of their expenses, their receipts, even something that says, hey, the end of the quarter is coming up for a freelancer, start thinking about issuing your quarterly VAT report. So kind of in a sense, going back to the basics, basic banking, invoicing, but doing this from an entirely digital perspective.
Yeah, thank you. And it's interesting how the requirements are so different between retail and the SMEs. You are saying like basic stuff like opening a bank account from your smartphone is still a novelty, at least in Portugal, and we feel that pain because we help startups at the fintech house, and all of them are trying to open bank accounts in Portugal, and it's always a challenge. And the second note that I think is a highlight is that how DeFi is being able to build solutions also for traditional banks, and how you can kind of merge these two worlds. And Teresa, you are here as representing the traditional banking. I'm not saying it's the old style. I'm saying it's like it comes from an incumbent side. And you have to deal with not only transformation, but also the legacy. So how do you see like the banking ecosystem and BPI changing in the future? And does it see any space in DeFi also to take advantage from there?
Yeah, so thank you for the invite, first of all. But yeah, incumbent banks have been dealing with legacy systems and digital transition for many years now. And legacy system leads to multiple issues for us, such as fast deployment of new technology, complexity in those deployments. So we are obviously we are working on evolving our legacy system because that's what keeps us competitive, and that's also what allows us to work with other players from the market, such as fintechs from Fintech House, which we are partner, that can help us really improve our services to the clients, right? So part of our job as the innovation team is to work around that. Also, part of our job as the innovation team is to trying to figure it out what the bank of the future looks like, right? So we are closely monitoring trends, and I think the buzzword of the moment is the metaverse. So for us, the metaverse is the intersection between three events, and it raises different challenges for banks. So on one side, you have M-worlds, which are virtual worlds, Roblox, that have billions of users, and there's a whole economy going on there. So I think the revenues from those worlds were like, together, were the GDP of Portugal, Spain, Italy, and France together. So there's a huge economy there, and as a bank, we have a role on the economy, so what should be our role there? Also, you have blockchain, Web3, so these technologies that were born from DeFi, right? And it's a hot topic for banks also, so digital assets. And it's coming, so we need to understand what type of products and services we can offer. As it is today, you see a lot of self-custody, and custody is one of the core products that we offer. So what should we do there? There's also that challenge. And finally, you have VR, AR, mixed reality. So these technologies, they are gaining a lot of adoption, and they are growing exponential. Is this a new channel of communicating with our clients? So as a recent innovation team, we have more or less of a year, we decided to start with that challenge, right? So, and we were talking here previously about this. So a few years ago, when smartphones appeared and apps appeared, banks really didn't think that people would do their banking operations through such a small screen, right? So they were focused on developing the home banking platform. That led us to where we are today. You don't have a full banking experience on your app, right? That's where neobanks kind of beat us here. So we don't want to make the same mistakes from the past. That's why we decided to test this technology and see how clients react to it. So we launched BPI VR, which is our virtual branch. I don't know how many of you have heard about it, but you can download it. If you have Oculus from Meta, you can download it on the store and go into our virtual branch. If not, we will make it available on our physical branches, which is kind of a, but yeah, for people to try it out.
At the Fintech House.
Or at the Fintech House, for sure. But yeah, so we launched the virtual branch, our virtual branch, where you can see, basically as it is today, it is a showroom. You can see our offer for the different segments, retail, corporate, private. You can play some mini golf also. You can interact with the physical, with the objects. So we have Produtos Prestígio. We sell a lot of Produtos Prestígio, such as watches, wine. I mean, everything you can imagine, we sell it. But there you can interact with the objects, and it's a super interesting and immersive experience, okay? But this is what we call the first step into the metaverse. We want to continue evolving this path. This year, we would like to make some interaction between clients and their managers. We also want to help our partners to enter the metaverse and to have their virtual stands with their digital twins, with their immersive contents on our app. So we are on this path to go through that channel.
Yeah, I think I'll go a little bit off script of what we have arranged before, but I think it's an interesting point here, and Portugal FinTech is always focusing on this, that traditional entities are creating these capabilities of working with ecosystem and working with partnerships and working with third parties because they have recognized that maybe they are not the fastest developing and going to the market, so they have to partner to do it. How do you think BPI is changing and adapting to also not only adopt more technology, but to do it faster with third parties and to collaborate more with fintechs?
Well, that has been a challenge. We are still working on how to do that the best way. But yeah, we have partnered up with the FinTech House this year. Last year, sorry. We also have partnered up with startup scale-up program from the
Unicorn Factory. Yeah.
Yes, from the Unicorn Factory. So we are giving our first steps and really bringing that culture to inside our company. Okay, so because other departments are not really used to working with other players, so that's a challenge, and we want to really work on that. And we also are working with the FinTech solutions, but I'll keep that as a secret until the next 5 minutes.
No worries. Yeah, we'll unveil it in a moment. Yeah. We have been talking a lot about how technology is pressuring the change in the banking ecosystem, and I think founders always talk about technology, but as a head of product, and I love this part because Rov is doing a huge work on testing with users and listening to what the users really want to do, and I think sometimes we forget on how we have really to dedicate our time to listen to our consumers. So what do you think is new, and how are you adapting and creating a product that really fits your users, and how are you really listening to these users?
So right now we're launching with friends and family. We're calling them our beta users. So before our launch in April, we have 100 people that we've invited to download the app, to use it, to try to break things, to give us feedback, so we can make improvements and make sure it's customer-centric. I think this is definitely, again, one of the benefits that neobanks have is that they, essentially are starting from scratch and can build something with customers in mind. But as head of product, I like to kind of think about what we build not in traditional product lines, so current account, savings, lending, investments. I like to think of it more kind of jobs to be done for the business users. So thinking about, as a freelancer, I need to ensure that I can pay my quarterly bill in months of famine. So typically freelancers go through what's called feast and famine. So 1 month or a couple months they have a lot of work coming in, then they have a lull. So how do you manage that kind of gap in cash flow? So when you think about the job perspective, then you can start to think about how you launch innovative products or features and services. And then I guess if you bring that down to the product level, it could be, okay, well, how about a solution that offers invoice advance for freelancers, right? So, they need that 5K, that's the client is, 90 days late paying them or something. So I think it's, financial products, we even see this in DeFi, right? A lot of the kind of solutions we see in DeFi mimic products in the traditional finance world. So I think where we differentiate ourselves is trying to think differently about the products and solutions and not map it to the traditional way of thinking, but more to the kind of customer-centric way of doing things and kind of how they go about their day-to-day.
Yeah. I think the challenge is really to put it in practice, because I think if you look to the strategy of any entity today, they always say customer-centric. The difficult part is really to put it in the center. When we were preparing this panel, we tried to understand what was really the mission and the vision for the Building the Future, and it's a really cool objective this year on the responsibility and our opportunity also to make impact and to be responsible for the change. And I also wanted to understand, Afonso, how do you see DeFi as an opportunity also to accelerate financial inclusion or to impact the world? And do you think if DeFi protocols or entrepreneurs or founders are also taking that responsibility of using the technology to change the world?
Mm-hmm. I have maybe mixed feelings on the question. I think there's a very big part of decentralized finance and of crypto in general that isn't too concerned with improving the world. There's that part. And it's more concerned with other goals. For example, very intricate financial engineering, for example, building layers of derivatives on top of other layers of derivatives, etc. But I do think that there are already some use cases that are improving the world. And I think it's pretty reasonable to have, at the beginning of the industry, a lot of speculation and a lot of products that are not just like pure use cases for the real world. We also saw that like in the most used comparison is 99 internet, right? Pre-dot-com bubble in 2000 and 2001. A lot of the websites that were IPOing back then weren't really adding any value and were valued at billions of dollars. We see that in crypto, especially like 2021. We saw that a lot. Now, obviously, valuations have come down a lot. I think a couple use cases that could be interesting to point out. One of them that has definitely found product market fit, which is kind of a rare thing for most of crypto, is stablecoins. So for example, I'm an European Union citizen. I hold my bank account balances in euros, like most people here. And I wouldn't have a very easy access to US dollars if I wasn't using stablecoins on-chain, which I do a lot. And for example, 2022, US dollars appreciated like 20% versus euro. So that was a good thing to see. The other one that a lot of people mention related to stablecoins is international payments, because it's pretty easy in Portugal to MBY some amount of money to a friend. It's feeless, there's no fee, it's instant, it works pretty perfectly, but there's not that product to send $10 to some friend in the US, right? That would cost a lot, it would take a lot of time, and it wouldn't really have a very good UX. And there are plenty of chains, L2s, etc., on top of Ethereum that would allow to have that pretty instantly and with sub 1 cent fees right now, which is pretty incredible. And I think that's a good point to start in terms of, as we work more distributed, right? I live most of the time in Portugal, but I work for teams all around the world. There wouldn't really be too many good ways for them to pay me via direct bank transfers. So I think that's one good use case. And for example, we see this a lot in Latin America, where Argentina, Venezuela, other companies like that have, like in the US and Europe, people are worried about 2022 having 7% inflation year over year. There, people are worried about 100%, 200%, right? Where purchasing power is being eroded. And a lot of people there use stablecoins, so US dollar denominated tokens that they can just send pretty much for free. Even if they're not using decentralized protocols, even if they're using like centralized exchanges and others to do that, it's also a pretty good use case. And if I was there, I'd definitely use US dollar stablecoins than pesos or other bolivars or whatever, right? So I think that's one. I think there are a lot of other ways this can help the world. So I'm a big believer in financial freedom and in actually owning your own assets. And for example, there were plenty of occasions in recent history where assets were confiscated from people. So, for example, if you were a Russian oligarch in the beginning of 2022, you had nothing to do with Putin or the government, but you had like $1 billion in assets that were in US treasuries, that were in European banks, etc. A lot of that got frozen, right? And this is like an apolitical opinion, but still like, you don't have to have anything to do with your country, and you're basically getting hurt because of decisions that some government made, right? If they had that on-chain, there would be nothing for any government to do there. Even in Europe, like the euro debt crisis post the financial crisis 2008 in the US, like 2010, 11, for example, banks in Greece, I was a kid back then, but banks in Greece, I remember perfectly seeing on the news, limiting withdrawals, right? People could not like get access to, which is pretty insane to me and would never happen in a fully permissionless decentralized system built on a blockchain. So I think those are a couple good use cases. There's a lot to say, but those are more palpable ones instead of all of the financial engineering layers that we have fun with, I think.
Yeah, thank you. That's an interesting perspective, and I would love to have more time to discuss this, because a lot of what you say relies on a necessary level of financial literacy, and not only technology literacy, but really basic financial literacy to deal with these kind of tools. I'd love to make this final question, but I was pressured to be on time. And I will leave this to an after question, because I think there's also a responsibility on these players on how they deal with financial literacy. It's always a difficult topic to make revenues out of. So it always ends up being like some side topic, but it's a critical one. Yeah. So just as a wrap up, and I think before we kind of do the unveil of the FinTech Innovation Lab, I'd just like to highlight some 3 basic ideas that I think are critical. It's like DeFi is a technology that will grow on its own, but it's also a lot that can be adopted, at least models from traditional finance, and we are trying to do that kind of engagement from the traditional players. We deeply believe in neobanks as the ones that can truly develop products based on what the consumer really wants. And we truly believe that the way incumbent banks can deal with fintechs will be the key to change at least the Portuguese fintech ecosystem. And we are trying to build that bridge, a bridge between the traditional banking and the fintech ecosystem. And as a non-profit, we always try to get these transversal programs in the market, and that's why we are building the FinTech Innovation Lab. We are launching it today with the sponsorship of also Microsoft, and we thank you for Microsoft for this support. And I'd like to welcome Raquel, if you can briefly present us the program, and then we can wrap up and have lunch, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, António, for the introduction. My name is Raquel, and I won't take you too long because I know this is the last panel before lunch break. But I just wanted to share with you our mission at FinTech Solutions, which is to bridge the gap between mature players and startups. And we do this because we believe that by bringing these two together, we are accelerating the future of financial services and basing a lot of what has been discussed here today. And for that reason, to achieve this mission, we have created the FinTech Innovation Lab, which is a platform of experimentation between mature players and startups in a way that mature players propose real challenges that they want to solve with the fintech ecosystem, and we create this platform of experimentation with the two to solve those challenges and create new products and services. But I don't want to take too much time, so we have prepared a small video for you to just really get the pitch of what is the FinTech Innovation Lab. Thank you.
We stand at the dawn of a new era in the finance industry. An era where technology drives change and experience drives transformation. Now, fintechs and traditional players design together the future of how we earn, save, exchange, and invest. In this new era, financial services are done in an ecosystem, and 90% of them are yet to be built. We are powering that creation. Welcome to the FinTech Innovation Lab, the platform for experimentation designed by the fintech ecosystem to boost the creation of new products and journeys. The lab is not an acceleration program, but a fast track to speed up partnerships. 6 corporates have entered the lab to experiment and test new products in partnerships. The corporates have set 5 major challenges and are now looking for solutions that help them reinvent in client engagement, internal automation, payments, cybersecurity, and other dimensions. Be part of the lab and show how the future of finance is done in ecosystem.
Thank you very much.